and welcome to the 3 Cents podcast.
My name is Tracy Yonga. I'm your host. And I know you're wondering why her 3 cents or why this podcast. A woman's opinion barely ever matters. And that is why I thought of creating this space to truly discuss the issues and the systems that have been built around us and to interrogate whether they actually empower us or disenfranchise us. We have seen rising cases of murder in Kenya, intimate partner violence, gender-based violence, femicide. They hit our news every single day. And it is not just a Kenyan problem. It is not just an African problem. It is a global problem. We have seen issues to do with the economic empowerment of women put to question. Their role in leadership is still being put to question. Almost 2,000 years later, we are discussing these issues. And it is saddening that the woman who is the bedrock of societal leadership, every family rises from a woman, is having to fight for the basic right to live. That is why I thought of creating this platform to hopefully interrogate and analyze what is the heart of the problem, what is the root of the problem. We are a people that react. We are a people that are used to waiting for things to happen and then go and fetch water to put out the fire. But do we ever ask ourselves what is causing the fire? What is causing what we are seeing today? We shift and a lot of blame, but really do nothing. Is it a problem of policy? Is it a problem of religion? Is it a problem to do with our culture? Is it just the way Africans are? Is it even a problem of discipline, as people would like to put it? This podcast aims to hopefully answer the questions that have been in our minds, to shed light on the darkest places of femicide, GBV, and every other issue we see that surrounds a woman today. Today, we're not fighting for the right to vote, for example, like we did in the suffrage era. Today, we're not fighting for the right to education. Today, we're not fighting even for the right to an equal role and equality at the workplace. It is not even a fight for leadership in political places. The fight is much more primitive. The fight is much more rudimental. The fight is the fight for the basic right to life that no one should have to fight for, because we are all entitled to living a life of dignity. And I'm inviting you to be a part of these conversations, inviting your family and your friends to truly examine someone who's lost a mother, a daughter, a sister, or even systems and governments that oppress women in the name of religion, in the name of politics, or whatever excuse that they come up with. Are we truly being fair to ourselves in the long run? And when we see ladies come up with conversations like the child-free discussion, and we blame them, we say that, oh, they don't want to have children anymore. Are we truly being fair? Are we truly being honest? Is it right? And we are going to explore both camps and see how far we can go in seeking out not only the truth, but even that which we do not want to accept, even that bitter pill that we do not want to swallow. We need to have these uncomfortable discussions if we hope to move forward to a safer, better society, not just for ladies, but for everyone.
Women don't just die at the hands of men. They are killed.
In Kenya, an average of 50 women have been killed every year since 2016. From that number, women aged between 18 and 40 are most at risk.
These incidences are not isolated.
Some of these women are killed by men they know. Others are killed by men they are not in relationship with.
Take, for instance, the case of Agnes Tirop, a budding athlete who was killed in cold blood.
Rita Waeni, a young university student whose life was cut short earlier this year in Nairobi.
We must all be angry.
But where's the outrage?
These killings are not just an attack on the victim, but an attack on the family. The very family you sought to protect, Mr. President.
It is time to declare femicide a national crisis in Kenya.
Be your sister's keeper. Stop femicide.
A very, very good afternoon, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Her 3 Cents podcast. I am your host, Tracy Yonga.
And my name is Banis Whitney Aluch.
And welcome to the very first episode of Her 3 Cents podcast. Oh, I am excited.
I am so excited.
This has been a long, long time coming. There was a time when this was just something in my mind, something at the back of my mind. But finally, today, we are doing it. And we are so glad that you are a part of this podcast today. We are inviting you along for the journey, and we hope that you will enjoy. Our aim here is to enlighten, empower, and educate. Bernice, how have you been?
Yeah, just the usual. I'm okay. But yeah, these are times to live in fear as a woman,
I'm not living in any fear, but it is indeed the most dangerous time to be a young woman under 25 and in a relationship. You do those two things and your risk of getting in this country increases dramatically. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because is it not crazy that every single day now, I think we moved from hearing cases once a week to now we're hearing them almost daily. The other day we had the story of Alice Rianga, the student from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Yeah. And I was not surprised because I have gotten to a point where honestly I'm not surprised, but I'm just exasperated because I'm wondering when is there ever going to be a time that will come when we will not hear about these cases?
I don't know, right? Like, right now, you can't even walk out without, always watching your back to see if there's someone walking after you, or, you can't sit in your house with peace, not knowing.
I know, because the danger is actually not far. The danger is not coming from strangers. The danger is coming from an intimate partner.
Your family member, your friend. Tutamini nani? Who will you trust?
Yeah, I know. And I am anxious to see if at all we would have a governmental response. I know that the president the other day declared this a national crisis, but I do not think it bears any legal value. While it may be symbolic, it's a little else after that. Yeah, and it's a wait and see.
It's a wait and see matter, because I don't think there's any justice really being done.
And well, if we're going to talk about justice in this country, it takes actually an average of between 4 to 7 years for these cases to reach final judgment. And my issue is not even about justice being done. It's preventing the need for justice in the first place by protecting our girls. And that is not being done. And even worse, there's victim blaming, where we're talking about girls being gold diggers. I mean, in as much as she was, let's say hypothetically that she was with you for the money and she tried to break up with you.
Yeah, that doesn't really give you the right to kill her for wanting your money, or
it's quite an exaggerated response, given the fact that I believe that there are so many men who are in relationships where the woman is the one financially responsible, and we do not see the same response coming from the woman.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a wait and see. There's a technical working group that is responsible. It was put together by the president. But what is disturbing for me is the silence from all quarters. I have not heard any single peak from the church, from the government, from the technical working group that is meant to work on the domestic violence issue, from women representatives even. I mean, the other day we had one of them in the news for all the wrong reasons, and it was so disgraceful.
What brings me to my question, is femicide really a criminal issue or a cultural issue?
I think before it becomes a criminal issue, it is first a cultural issue, right? Because it becomes a criminal issue when the law is involved, when the person crosses the line and murders their partner. But we really need to examine first what the root is, and culture has a big, big part to do with it. First of all, we are Africans, and the African man is a very unique species. The African man has been primed and conditioned to believe that he is superior. There is a hierarchy actually in our society, and the man sits at the top of that hierarchy as an apex predator. And what our culture has done is that it has turned this man into like a caveman on steroids, if I can put it like that. When you examine some of the things that we do, when a son is born in an African home, you remember when we were learning in social studies that the boy child would get 5 ululations and the girl child would get 3 ululations. Yeah. So already before these kids even grow up to understand or to fully grasp their environment, there is prime value that is placed on the man, and that is why there will be 5 ululations for the boy child and there will be 3 ululations for the girl child. What that is communicating is there is prime value on the man. Yeah. If we look at how they are raised, the household, the African household is centered around the man. It is centered around the needs of the man. It is so extreme that in some countries, if you're a woman and you're married and you don't have male children, you end up having female children, they cannot inherit.
But those days are long gone. Like nowadays we live in a very...
The days are long gone, but the ideology is still very much the same. See, that's the thing about ideology. Ideology spans across time. It is not something that, some years will fix. Take, for example, terrorism. I mean, terrorism began in the 60s and the 70s in the Arabic world, right? Today, we still have terrorism. 50, 60 years later on, despite the interventions that have been put in place by the global bodies like the United Nations, despite the millions and millions that America invests and every other government invests, we still have terrorism. Why? Because it is an ideology. It does not die with one person. And that's the same thing with male superiority. It is an ideology that is rooted in things that have outlasted, or let me put it like this, religion is as old as time, right? Yeah. So there are aspects of religion that, of course, enforce the mythology, because I deem it a mythology, that the male is superior. Despite the amount of work we've had to do, even disproving from the Bible that it is not true that we're equal in the eyes of God, we still have the same problem, because it is a problem of ideology. And that ideology is so deeply rooted within us. Laws cannot fix ideologies. You need to deal with the ideology first and then input law as a deterrent for those who will be persistent enough to cross the barrier. And now we'll have that as a criminal thing. That's why I said, before it is ever a criminal problem, it is first a cultural problem. It is giving preference to the boy child in whatever way, taking him to a better school, giving him better opportunities than you. And today we don't fight for much of that, because we have done an incredible job in terms of feminism. We have done an incredible job of educating our girls. We have done an incredible job of giving them as much equality as we can in the workplace. But the ideology is still there, that at the end of the day, when you go home to the domestic setting, then the man is the one who has the voice.
And so do you think this femicide issue can be handled? Can it have a solution to it? Because how many times will we go on the road saying no killing women? How many times will we go to the police crying out, how many times do we have to do this?
I think there is a solution to femicide. I do believe that I will one day wake up in a world where I'm not only safe, but my daughter is safe. I'm an advocate of women's rights, and I am a policy reformist in the GBV space. And it is personal to me to seek out and find a solution, because it is something that I lived through, having been a survivor. Do I believe there's a solution? Yes, there's a solution. Do I think the solution is only going to be protests? No, I do not think so. Think of it like this. We have a reactionary approach to what we're supposed to actually have a prevention, a proactive approach to. Our mindset is we will wait for it to happen and then
that
we
can
will
go to the
react.
road and react.
You understand?
Yes.
We will hear these killings, then we will take up our placards and we will go to the road, we'll hold vigils, we'll say end femicide, stop femicide. Our slogans are doing very little. So it has to start with recognizing that this is no longer just a domestic issue. I have an issue with the term domestic violence because clearly it is no longer domestic, it is now national. With the kind of numbers that we have, of all the femicide cases, statistics say that 77% of all women murdered are murdered by femicide, that is in a class of its own, which means that she was killed by someone intimate to her.
Yeah.
And of the 77%, we have 68% who are husbands. Of the 77%, we have 32% who are boyfriends.
Yes.
And we have to recognize, because there is the temptation to say, hiyo ni mambo ya watu wawili. So we can't interfere, we can't intervene. And that's a problem with terming it a domestic issue because it restricts it to the home. But we have seen that the violence has spilled from the home. And now we are having to deal with national staggering cases. It is in every county. Today, you will hear of one like Tracy Yonga was from Kisii. She was a student in Bondo. The other day, we had a case from Nakuru, Anita, who was killed by her husband, who happens to be a captain, allegedly, but there were witnesses. We had a case in Machakos. We had a case in Nairobi. It is all over the country, and now it is no longer restricted to one person's home. So we must stop terming it per se as domestic. The nature of it is domestic, but the scope has extended. It is now outside the home. For us to truly begin to appreciate the gravity of the problem, we must call it what it is. And the president did that when he said it is a national crisis. Yes, it is a national crisis. What are we doing? The law and policies are very slow moving. As a policy reformist, I can say that it will take us years to achieve the kind of policies that would give women the protection they're entitled to, even under the law.
Also, there's this case of a woman who was murdered by her husband, and the husband is a cop, is a police in the Kenyan government. So how are we supposed to live with this Kenyan policemen if they are the ones who are supposed to protect us, but they're the ones killing us?
And that is why it is a systemic problem. There are problems within the system. There are gaps within the infrastructure that afford someone like the husband to Anita, a KDF captain, Kenya Defense Forces, the cop who killed his wife earlier this year. We are seeing those cases because they are systemic issues with the way we vet our policemen. Do they undergo psychological testing to really ascertain whether they are, psychopaths, for example?
When he just anyways, randomly shot when we were protesting for, the bill. And he just randomly shot the guy close up. How do you just do that? Aren't they ways to deal with that situation? Are these guys really being taught what to really do in such situations?
And that is why I said the issue with policy is that it takes time. For example, even with GBV and femicide, a lawmaker would have to table a bill in parliament. The bill has to pass through 3 readings, at least, last time I checked. Once it passes through the 3 readings, it has to go to the executive. The president has to sign on it. That takes time. Even after he signs it into law, then there is the issue of enforcement. How do you enforce that law? Which is why we must switch from reaction to prevention, because it will take years for us to achieve the kind of policies that are going to. If America is having an issue, America is also grappling with the highest femicide cases in the world. And if America, a first world democracy with much better systems, digitized police systems, they have body cams, they have better restraining orders, they have better ways to track these perpetrators, and they're still grappling with a problem. What of us? We're still writing obese on paper. We don't have a central femicide database at this 60 years after independence. We cannot wait for the law to catch up to what is happening on ground, which is why we must switch to prevention. And what is prevention? We must educate our girls. There is a First Amendment in the US, again, sorry for making a lot of reference to the US, there's a Bill of Rights that gives you a right to own a gun. So that if someone comes and attacks you in your home, you can shoot them and you will not be prosecuted because they came and they attacked you in their home. We need to have such a kind of preventative mindset when we are dealing with policy. Not to arm women. Not to arm women, you misunderstand me. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to have a prevention mindset, that you need to arm the girls, not with handguns, but to arm them with the knowledge to deal with this. The reason why they're getting into these relationships that are violent is, number one, we're not taught emotional intelligence in our schools. And if you look at the earliest age a girl gets into a relationship, by the time they're 11, 12, 13,
even 8,
they're inside a relationship already. She's inside a relationship already without even being equipped to the tools to understand red flags and boundaries. And we see this consistently happen where we have not prioritized the safety of our girl child because we have not addressed the gaps. She has not been taught emotional intelligence. She does not know how to assert boundaries. She does not know how to say no. She does not know how to identify a narcissist. She does not know that the first time he hits you is the time to leave.
Yes.
It does not get any better.
But, you know, I can also say the problem is also in how we are raised and the environments we grew up in. You know, we grew up seeing our parents or, you know, the elderly people saying, vumilia to, you know, he's your husband, you need to do that. Just stay there, he'll change, he won't hit you again. You need to stop provoking him. You know, such, you know, yeah, I can also blame the environment we grew up in because, you know, sometimes it's a shameful thing, even coming out to your friends and telling them, you know, I was hit by my boyfriend or by my man. Because, like, not everyone will give you that safe space to, like, talk to them about it. So even the space to talk about it is no longer there because there's a shame mindset among us women and we don't want to, like, people know what we're going through really.
That is exactly why it is a cultural issue before it becomes a criminal issue. As someone who has been within that setting before, that statement is very familiar to me. See, when you said we're taught vumilia, I remember when I first started having those problems, the violence. The first time it happened, I actually left. Picked up my bags because I had grown up at the peak of feminism. And so I was not going to sit around. He slapped me the first time and I said, okay, you know what, I'm leaving. But the mistake I made is that I maintained contact and I opened the door and
you kept it open.
I kept it open, which allowed for access, manipulation, and control. And so I found myself back again in that environment. And when it got to a point, by the time it is actually the woman who escalates the issue now to involve family members. And you can imagine by the time it has gotten to that point, because the abusive person is not going to go out and, you know, seek the intervention of the family members and say, I'm abusing her. It is a woman who seeks the intervention of family members. And when I did, I remember sometimes when the aunties would come and my in-laws would come and they would advise me and they would tell me, we love you. Just know that marriage is something difficult. It requires endurance. Vumilia too. Pray about, oh my God. I cannot tell you how many times I had that statement. In fact, every time I hear pray about it, I am triggered. Because I am a woman of faith, actually. Yeah. And I pray a lot.
And God helps those who help themselves.
Exactly. When again, now the issue was escalated to a religious body, and there was a statement that was, you know, repeated over and over again, pray about it. And nothing changes. Sometimes God is silent because the solution is right there with you. He's not going to send from heaven what is already on us. And so you've prayed, you've fasted, you've done all the right things, you have cried, and you're not moving from it. In fact, it gets worse because if it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And so there's a cultural issue. We have seen I don't want to blame some of our mothers and some of our grandmothers, because there are times when there's genuine issue within the marriage and you need to endure tough times, but you never have to endure violence. Never have to endure violence. But we have institutionalized the culture of endurance, and we have placed the burden of keeping the home on the woman. Such that when she leaves, it is her failure
fault.
and her failure alone. You know, we have institutionalized that. We have also institutionalized a culture of shame. And the worst kind of shame is placing shame on the victim, because it doesn't make any sense. I'm not the one who did anything wrong. It is embarrassing. Sometimes in those violent encounters, when I would come out of the house and my face was swollen and everything, I felt such an incredible amount of embarrassment and shame.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Imagine.
If your head is swollen, people will easily see your lips are swollen, your body, you're in pain. And they also heard the ruckus and the noise during the night. And no one told me feel ashamed. I just felt ashamed.
It's just an emotion that you can't get away from.
And when you truly interrogate the emotion and you ask yourself, am I supposed to be the one feeling ashamed? Because right now, looking back, in retrospect, I ask myself, am I the one who was supposed to be feeling that shame? And no, I'm not the one who was supposed to be feeling that shame. And yet I felt it, because we have placed the burden on the woman to feel ashamed. That is why we're even doing victim blame. There are people online.
I hate people who say, mbona hukutoka? And like, it's so easy. Ni rahisi sana to say those words when you're not in that situation. But when you're in that situation, you find yourself, we mwenyewe tu kwa hapo tu bado tu unajiuliza hata wewe mbona siwezi toka. And there's so many things. Because huko nje you'll be told, you have kids with this man, where will you go? Maybe at that time you were fully dependent on the man. So we
make it so difficult for the lady to leave an abusive situation by asking her all these questions. Where will you go? How will you raise the kids? So should you die there?
Will the children grow up without a father?
And something that triggered me as I was doing my research, when I was looking at how the justice system handles the cases, and I was looking at the convictions and the years that these people are given in prison, it would actually surprise and trigger you to find out that husbands get lesser years for killing their wives. And why do they get lesser years? The reason will trigger you. So that, the court puts into consideration the fact that the children need to be taken care of by the surviving parents. That is an actual consideration. That, you know what, we're not going to give you the many years that you deserve because you have children you need to take care of. The same children whose mother you took away. Does that even make them a fit parent? No. Which is why I'm saying it is an issue with culture before it is ever even an issue with the laws that we have in place, the policies that we have in place, how the police are responding when they themselves are part of because I can imagine Anita's terror being the wife to an army officer and he's abusing you. Who do you report him to?
Exactly. A policeman is hitting me in my own home.
Who do you report a policeman
who's supposed to be defending me?
Imagine. So, in as much as I have a very, very open mind, when people hear me speak the first time, they assume that I'm an anti-marriage crusader. I'm not an anti-marriage crusader. I would love to get married, in fact, and I want to enjoy my marriage. They assume that I hate men. I do not hate men. I want to get married. So I am going to find a man who's going to love me and I will get married to that man. But I have a very, very open mind in the sense that that GBV is also men get killed by their wives, the poisoning and everything. But statistically, the higher, the number of killings is higher on the woman's side. We are losing more women than we are men. You don't hear cases of a man being poisoned every day by his wife. And even the means are very, very violent, because the three top means of husbands killing their wives is strangulation, stabbing, or blunt force trauma.
Even.
Exactly. Or hacking. You've seen someone hacking with a panga, with a machete. Some have survived and you see the scars on their body. It's absolutely devastating.
Really? How can you even walk out like that? There's a woman who was saying how her husband was hitting her and like she couldn't do anything. She was screaming and people weren't even coming to her aid. So you can imagine. But then we live in such a dangerous time. At a town unaibiwa na people will just look at you like it's normal. Wewe shughulika tu na mambo yako. Wewe ni sawa, sisi tuko na shughuli yetu. The fact that pia unaweza kuwa unapigwa kwa nyumba yako and nobody can, come to intervene, hiyo ni mambo yenu. There's this line of mambo ya watu wawili wachana nayo. And part of it is true, but also part of it is not true because your neighbor, your friend, someone close to you might be going through the same thing and you're needed there.
I think I would like to address the reason when mambo ya watu wawili, okay, usiingilia. When it comes to domestic violence, the issue is not even the physical scars. It is difficult to get out because it is first a mental problem. It rarely ever starts with him putting his fist on you. It starts with things that attack the mind. It starts with verbal abuse. He's priming and conditioning your mind to accept the physical abuse when it comes because he's breaking you down emotionally and mentally. So it is going to start with verbal abuse. It is going to start with emotional abuse. There is going to be insults. There's going to be degrading acts, ways to just degrade you and show you that you're nothing. Yeah. When you look at the Holocaust, what happened? The reason why the Germans assigned numbers to the Jews that they were putting in those concentration camps and gassing them in the gassing chambers was to dehumanize them. Because now you don't have a name, you're just a number. And that's the same thing you see within a domestic setup where there's domestic violence. They dehumanize you. With those, they right now, I have a very high perception of myself. I'm aware of my talent. I'm aware of my mind. I'm aware of what I bring to the table. So I'm very secure within myself. I do not outsource validation. Take, for example, a woman who all her life, for example, has had to outsource validation from other sectors, has had to rely on someone else calling her beautiful and everything. So now she meets this man and he becomes her only, he makes sure, and that is a tactic and a strategy that they use, that he becomes the only source of validation for her. They will isolate you from your friends, but they're not even just isolating you physically so that they can have the opportunity to harm you away from others, but they're isolating you from other people who have alternative perspectives. And so that when he calls you ugly, you can go and ask your friend, am I really ugly? And your friend is going to be like, of course not, you're not ugly. But once the friend is removed, no one is there to counter what he's doing to you, the words he's saying to you, and he tells you you're ugly, you're useless, you're stupid, you're dumb. There's no one to counter that and tell you. And also because you don't have an internal system that is calibrated in such a way that you are your own source of validation. So people hesitate to interfere because, of course, when you help the woman the first time, she goes back. But you don't understand the reason why she's going back is because her mind has been messed up with. Mentally, she has, and that is why in my line of work, for example, before I ever look at the physical scars, what he did, I understand that there's deep psychological wounds that need to be addressed first. You need to address this lady psychologically and treat her psychologically first. If you hope to remove her from that physical, it took me a lot of tries to leave. Almost 6. And that is because it has gone so deep into you. There is a learned helplessness also that you acquire. Because I cannot wish this on my worst enemy, and I will tell you this, the fear that comes with someone putting their hands on you, someone strangling you, someone choking you, the very real fear, it actually domesticates you even more, and that's why men prefer to met out physical violence, because they know the effect is that utaka ni kama umenyeshewa, let me put it like that. You cower in fear, and that fear is very hard to remove. Even long after you've gone, there's still that physical fear. When I'd have to
trauma at the back of your head.
Exactly. When I'd have to go back to the town where we used to live, both of us, I literally had to, always look behind me and ensure that I am safe, because I am very well aware that he's within the same town, and wondering, am I going to end up as another story on the news, and people are going to say, oh, it happened several times, there were police reports, because these ladies even report to the police. But the first thing we need to do, which brings me to the second proposed solution that I have personally, is individual-based intervention. I understand we have interventions on a national scale, but we need to devolve the interventions down to the individual. When one individual is liberated, when one lady is liberated, we talk a lot. We have chamas. Actually, so many ladies have bought land using the strategy of kukua na chama. We band together naturally. And so when I am liberated, it makes it that much easier for me to reach out and liberate another lady. It makes it that much easier for me to reach, because that is what I have been doing ever since I left. People reach out to me all the time on my DMs, and they're like, I really, really want to leave. How do I go about it? Or I'm in this situation. How can I extricate myself? And because I have been liberated, I'm no longer bound. I can hold their hand and I can guide them through until they come out of that situation. So we need to devolve workshops. We need to devolve interventions down to the individual first and deal with individuals. We need to have dedicated desks on the police station. I don't understand why. And I was actually surprised when I was reading the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act of Kenya 2015 that says that if you want to report to a lady police officer, you can request for a lady police officer at the station. In my own experience, I found male police officers. And the thing is, they just don't understand. They cannot relate, or they're going to minimize what has happened to you, or they're going to take the side of the man because
ulifanya kitu kibaya ndo maana alikutandika,
exactly.
Ulifanya kitu kibaya ndo maana, such.
Because in the case of Anita, once again, her husband had been arrested days before he allegedly killed her, but he was released mysteriously. And so it begs the question, what was the process of his release?
There is no process up to,
they talked, they said that, sometimes we men, we get angry, naive. That is why if you are in a domestic violence situation, you can request for a female police officer who is going to understand the position who is going to take your matter with the seriousness that it deserves.
What about, do you know, sometimes I have heard of cases of many women who left their husbands home and they go to hide under their moms or their family's umbrella, and if they betray, this is a case of women being enemies of themselves. So you go and hide under your mom's care, and they come and they talk to your mom, and your mom is like, oh, it's okay, you can take her back. Now she gives you back to them. There's nothing you can really do about it. What about you go to a woman in prison, or like to report it to a woman, and she'll be like, oh, it will be okay, just go back and talk it out, some issues are just to talk about it. Brings him back to exactly that women are our own enemies.
Yes, there is that problem. Then we have seen that with our mothers. We have seen that with our aunts. We have seen that with our again, personally experienced a lot of minimization. Every time I would, escalate the issue, for example, to the mother of my abuser, she would minimize it in as much as, surprisingly, she also experienced it at one point. What if we're going to have female police officers? That's why I said we need to have dedicated desks first at the police station, dedicated for domestic violence, solely for the purpose of domestic violence, so that they are treated with the urgency and with the speed that they require. Number two, obviously, these people at the dedicated desks are going to go through a vetting process and a training process, because this is not some issue, that you handle dawa ya kienyeji nini. No. This is an issue that requires expertise. You need to know how to handle a victim with the dignity that you do, because some of the remembering it, another reason why women don't seek for help is because some of the things that you go through at the hands of justice, trying to seek justice or trying to extricate yourself, they are very indignifying. I remember one time reporting the matter. I was actually surprised that 999 works. I was caught up in a domestic situation. I called. I was really desperate at that time, and I didn't know, but they picked up, and I explained. I said, "My name is this and this. I'm in this and this place. I'm in the middle of a domestic dispute, and there's violence involved." And they came, and when they arrested him, they handcuffed him. They also bundled me into the same Land Cruiser that he was in, and I had to sit across from him the whole ride, and I had my kids with me. And first of all, that is a very dangerous situation. Yeah. You have handcuffed him, but you don't know if he has any weapons. He can just choose to, go wild and come and stab you. Just seated across from him. It is indignifying because the Land Cruiser was open at the back, of course, so everyone can see you on the road. You feel ashamed, you feel embarrassed. I went to the police station. It was in the morning. By the time I got out, it was afternoon. I had not eaten. My kids had not eaten. And, the whole process was so indignifying. And with him trying to protest and saying, "Oh, she's the one that he's having to be in the same space with him." Because it is my suggestion again that immediately you get to the police station, both parties should be separated. But I had to be in the same space with him. And I had to be subjected to a sort of, "Oh, he said, she said," kind of thing, which was very uncomfortable. So it was so indignifying, and that is why some women shy away from asking for help. And that's why I said that if we're going to have those dedicated desks, again, it is a matter of culture. It is what we have normalized in this country, that we do not treat women's safety with the seriousness that it deserves. And these are people who take care of us every day. It is a lady that cooks for you. It is a lady that cleans your house. It is your wife. She raises your children. She's involved in every single aspect of the home. Some even give you investment advice. Some have single-handedly propelled their families financially, where, some husbands are not gifted in business acumen, but their wives are. And you see, she can multiply the wealth of the home. But we do not take their safety seriously. We do not take their health seriously. We need to shift how we look at things and change the culture around how we do things, so that they will be vetted, they will be trained on how to deal with victims. We need to update our care standards, our post-care standards, to match global standards. Such that, okay, you're taking me to the police station. Have you checked if I need medical care first? That didn't happen for me. I was in so much pain. There was no suggestion yet. Should we pass by the hospital? Because, it's a police, hata tukienda, P3, what.
And, even in that situation, the kids are not even supposed to be seeing that or going through that. They should be like, is that
someone you can leave the kids with, someone you trust. Yeah. But again, it was actually 2 men that came that day to extricate me from the situation. So again, you see, they cannot relate because inside their heads, they're not thinking about the kids. A woman will naturally think about the children. If there was a female police officer, she would have said, "Okay, we cannot go with the children to the police station. That is no place for kids. Is there someone you can leave these children with? Utawakujia?" No. So why are male officers responding to a domestic violence situation?
Exactly.
Or at least let's have a male and a female.
This one can work on the man, this one can work on the woman. The woman will understand the woman and the man, Yeah.
Yeah. So there's need for an intentional removal of bad culture. We need to excise it out the way a surgeon would cancer. And we need to replace it with cultures that promote the safety, the care, the health, the just intentionality of we are thinking about you. Because I do understand that in some cases, there are some ladies who fake domestic violence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, even while interrogating whether this is real or this is fake, there needs to be care that is taken while handling that matter. So we have had such a wonderful time discussing this. I cannot wait for our next episode. We are not done with the culture around femicide. We are going to have a guest next time to also continue discussing. We need to have these conversations. That's it for our time today. If you or anyone you know is going through a domestic situation, there are helplines. You can dial 999. There are domestic violence hotlines that you can research. You can get Google, ChatGPT. We're in the age of technology, and you can reach out. Reach out to someone.
Ukitoka kwa hiyo nyumba, send your location. Speak up,
Speak
talk about
out.
it.
That's it for us. And that's it from us. And we hope to have you next time along for the ride. It's been me, your girl, Tracy Yonga, a lover of all things women.
And Bunny Salwich.
See you next time.